am so excited. I have one of the most respected programmers in the country, Graham Skip Dillard. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you today, Felicia?
I am even better having you on the show. This is such a treat.
Thank you so much.
Now, let me understand this. Are you VP of Operations and Operations Manager for WBLS, or how does that work?
VP of Programming, Program Director for WBLS FM and WLIB AM.
Okay. And for those that don't understand what that means, what does that job title
Kind of quality
entail?
control. I deal with the music, deal with talent development, managing our staff, working with our corporate office to make sure that the goals and direction our stations have determined we need to be in, that these things are met. And also, of course, first and foremost, ratings, making sure our listenership is as high as we can make it, community engagement, research, and strategy for changing listener habits, especially in the age of COVID we're in. A lot of patterns have changed of people's daily habits. They're everything from many who commute to an even larger number who don't commute every day. How do you reach and continue to impact those audiences? And so, it's a pretty busy job, but, I've done this since college, and it's something I absolutely love. I love the immediate impact that radio has, the ability to reach people, to touch communities, to address issues. I think that, it's a most honorable career path, challenging today, but, worth the time and energy I have to put into it constantly.
Wow. Well, again, I am just so honored to have you on, because I know that you could be doing a million other things. So thank you so much. I had a wonderful opportunity a few months ago, maybe it was 6 months ago, to talk to you about radio, and you were just full of historical stories. And I said, I've got to get Skip on to just enrich our platform, because I know that we're working with the National Black Radio Hall of Fame, or have,
Yes.
and it's imperative that we connect and preserve our history, but a lot of people don't understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain in your words why it's so important that we preserve our history?
Well, I mean, if you look at African American history, it is American history, and I think we need to stop separating the two. Just as you learn about historical figures, the founders of our nation, how the Declaration of Independence came to be, you also have to learn and understand how the country was built. And it was built largely on not only slave labor, but the ingenuity of the transplanted Africans who were innovative, developed the cotton gin and many other, the traffic light, medical practices, the herbal remedies. I mean, you can't talk enough about the arts, science. I mean, jazz, which is truly America's classical music, all of these things that, day in and day out are cultural and part of who we are, part of America's DNA. So preservation of our history is important because so much of it was disregarded. So much of it was thought to be minuscule compared to the contributions of others. So, preserving, protecting, and teaching every child about the diversity and the melting pot our country is what's needed more than ever right now.
Absolutely. And it is a challenge, especially for radio, to capture that history, because a lot of radio stations came on board, thrived for a period, and records were lost and history was lost. And so it's really building a network of people like you who remember what it was like at certain radio stations, and you remember what was going on. Can you give us a glimpse of WBLS? Why is that history so significant?
Well, it goes back to a story I had heard, many, well, maybe several years ago. I had heard it again, but I heard it years before that, Percy Sutton, who was the borough president of Manhattan and really activist throughout the business community. He had been very involved with politics at one time, had, been thought of as maybe the person who would become mayor. And, he was at a political rally helping another candidate, maybe New York legislature or something. And so many people turned out for the town hall in Harlem. And, one of his people came over and said, "Oh my God, look at this. This is incredible what we did today." He said, "Well, imagine if we had a radio station. We're able to reach so many more people outside of what we saw in these seats tonight." And so the purchase of WLIB AM first was a milestone for Black ownership in America, being in the nation's #1 market. But what even became more significant was there was an option for WLIB FM, which was not really in existence at that time. And it was a construction permit saying basically, and the owner of LIB AM, which was what Percy Sutton and his group, Hal Jackson and Inner City Broadcasting, wanted. The owner said, "Well, if you're going to buy LIB, I really need to sell this FM option. I'll give it to you for $1 million." And at first they almost backed out of the deal because they're like, "Well, that's another million. We don't have 1.2 million for that. We're not doing that." And at the last minute, Hal Jackson sat down with Percy Sutton. And at the end of the meeting, Hal said, "Look, this BLS thing, well, not BLS times LIB, this FM thing may be something. FM radio, was secondary to the AM stations, which were all at the top of the ratings. WABC, all of the AM stations were at the very top, WINS. And he said, but, the FM thing may be something one day." He said, "You never know. It's an emerging technology. We ought to give it a shot." So they went back, got employees to take half salary or whatever, and got other investment money. And so BLS was the station that almost never was. And their goal was to be successful with the Black community. And almost instantaneously after getting BLS up and running and giving it its name and what it was, the station was practically #1 in the ratings. And I'm like, oh my God, And it stayed that way until KISS FM came on years later. And because BLS was so successful, you had WRKS. RKS went away in 2012, and that was such. Now, I competed against them, but never wanted to see them go away. I mean, they were our direct competitor for our livelihood. But, amazing to see a full signal station with 30 years of history like a KISS go away. So you have to tell those stories, just like I mentioned earlier, when you tell the overall story of African Americans. Our broadcast history is quite interesting, going back to Jack Gibson in the 40s and Hal Jackson in the 50s, and many others who opened those doors. Kathy Hughes, who was one of the first Black women owners, in a significant size market. The late Irene Ware, who passed earlier this year, who was the owner for a time, president of a station in Mobile, Alabama. Was first Black woman to have a radio station in that state in the Deep South in Mobile, WGOK. So you have to really look at the significant history that African Americans played. Not just in Black radio, but radio overall. And there many stories in other formats. Sonny Joe White, top 40 legend in Boston, who was African American. Quincy McCoy, who played a big part in early rhythmic stations. And I can just go down the list. There are a ton of names who played. Frankie Crocker, of course, I can never stop talking about, who really, became a national and even international brand. One of the first VJs, one of the first as a host of NBC Friday Night Videos. I mean, this guy was just larger than life. And, so we've got a huge story to tell, and we'll get to the women in a minute too.
Yes, we will. I want to also ask you, what do you think your legend will be 30 years down the road?
I hope that when I sit down and I plan to never get in a rocking chair, but when I do sit down for a break from media in general, it will have been to have helped, not just on-air talent, but managers, and maybe even an owner or two take the reins. That would be satisfaction for me. And, radio is going to change. I think podcasting can be counted as radio today. Um, Much of what we do visually, I think, can be in a way somewhat counted as radio. Radio will always be primarily audio, but you have to look at the way podcasting is shaping up. And you have to look at the way some of the streaming services are starting to add talent, options. They're not having, like when you go to stream your favorite song, there's nobody going to be announcing it, but you do have Apple Radio and Beats Radio and some other aspects that, still are going to count as terrestrial radio. Once was considered, hey, if you're doing this, you're doing radio, anything else you're not. I think that is starting to change and blur, and all of those things are going to come into play and are already in play.
I was going to ask you about the future of radio, and you are touching upon the changes that we're experiencing now. And I hear when I'm interviewing people, some are bitter, even C-suite executives. Oh, radio's no longer, it's a thing of the past. But what we know from history so far is that it was said just about, every decade, that radio was going to disappear. It's not going anywhere because it's a viable medium, but it will evolve. And are you thinking that matching the audio with the video will be a thing of the future for radio? Who started that? Who had their first? Ricky Smiley comes to my mind, but somebody else did, I'm sure. It was the first time we had an opportunity to look inside of a radio studio. Do you remember who that was?
Well, I don't think it's an individual person. I know that back at the advent of Facebook around 2010, you saw stations starting to install cameras in studios. And at the time, Wendy Williams was working for us at BLS, and she'd turn them off. She'd turn the cameras around. She just couldn't stand that. But we did over time get permission from her to be able to, with her, consent, for interviews, bring in a camera so she would know what was going on. Mm-hmm. But no, it's been an ongoing process. I mean, that started back in the mid 2000s as Web 2.0 started developing with MySpace and others, that there would be a look inside, the stations and with the talent. And in a big market like New York, I mean, pre-COVID, you had people coming in once a week to your studios, and who didn't want to see the cast of Greenleaf promoting their last season? Who didn't want to see Alicia Keys? In fact, she's on right now with one of our jocks doing a Zoom, but she's been in our studio many times. And I had a chance to take a couple of shots with a pro camera, and I was like, oh my God, I got to play like I was a photographer with Alicia Keys. That, we've had Robin Thicke, John Legend play piano in our studio. We actually brought in a piano from Yamaha Artist Services and had the tuner come in, and he came and played on Steve Harvey's show, and we originated out of New York. So we've had some, really amazing moments in-house, and Lord knows who wouldn't want to share the visual with the audience. And these artists now, they know if they're coming to our station that they're getting their hair and makeup together. So why wouldn't you? For heaven's sakes, want your listeners to share in that experience. But I think that overall, it's just, it's really not the future, it's here. I think, though, that, there is a value that will continue with audio because it's portable, it goes wherever you can go. And, the theater of the mind is still, very much at work. So I don't see people saying we don't want audio anymore. They're going to need audio. When you're driving, even with the driverless cars they claim will be here in the next 5 to 10 years, you're not going to be able to totally take your eyes off the road. Computer hiccups and hacks and other things will always have you staring somewhere at the road. So you're not going to be watching TV on the way to work while your car does all the work. So audio is still a very important part of what we do. But overall, what my belief is, it is more than anything. It is great information. If you look at the number of cable channels, there are about 1,000. How many of them targeted toward Black people outside of channels that have, Housewives of Cincinnati and 50 other things that aren't targeted towards our audience? In terms of dedicated African American channels, you've got probably about 5: BET, TV1, Bounce TV, Black News Network, if you can get it. I haven't seen it. There are very few that are. There's no African American sports network. There's, a couple Impact TV, which is not on every system, which is dedicated to Black Christians. TBN is really not, although they may have a Donnie McClurkin or somebody on once in a while. They're half of the day you got to deal with Jim Baker and the hacks and crazy people that it's about more race.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to get on a tangent, but
it's so true.
Because of that, you may actually see the traditional realm of Black radio survive much longer. You may see it. You may see African American targeted radio, do better than general market formats because they have so many other places they can go for information.
Right.
We don't. So, we just saw iHeart launch the Black Information Network. That was not
I was going to ask you about that.
You're going to, and again, it's too early to tell what that impact will be, but they're aggressively going at it. They have a signal in New York they've just purchased. They have a signal in Philadelphia. They're going into all the major markets. They're going into markets with, with strong African American populations. So, we are seeing the value of the Black dollar, and we're seeing it, and we're seeing it play out in many different ways. And this day of Black Lives Matter and all of the challenges facing us in the upcoming election, my thing is, in a time of strife and adversity, let's make this a true renaissance for the collective knowledge, information, empowerment of people of color. This is the only and best time we have for women. This is truly probably the best time in our lives, in our generations, that we will have these opportunities again for boards to sit down and say, hey, how come there's nobody of color or woman on our board? That's big. These were questions that were always skirted. Oh, we need more diversity. Now people are saying, well, what can we do? Do we need an internship program? Do we need a partnership with HBCUs for apprentices? What do we need to do? And that these conversations should have been had 50 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And we're just getting around to them. So, radio plays a major part in all that. And that's, as long as I see an opportunity to be that microphone for pop culture when it comes to people of color and women, I'm all for it.
That's what I love about you. That's what I love about you. I never had the opportunity to meet you one-on-one, but your legacy has been in my circle. So, yes, you are that person. Let me ask you this. You're a techie. What would you like to see? What direction would you like to see radio go? And then how can we level the playing field when it comes to Black ownership?
Well, there are a few things. I think the sound quality of streaming services is continuing to improve. You have Tidal that has arguably better than CD quality on just its hi-fi streams, and then it has what's called masters, which are mastered off the original recordings at the high bit rates. So Apple Music has just done an Apple Digital Master Series as well, and they have been quietly collecting from the labels the actual master recordings to re-image at higher rates, to what you call remix at higher rates, so bit rates. So I think that for radio, I think our next questions we have to ask is how do we improve our streaming. Much of our stations are streamed at very low bit rates and very low quality. We definitely need high resolution for that in the future. And I also believe that, we need to enhance our measurement, how our ratings are determined. Right now, Nielsen is working on wearables in which it may be, may look sort of like an Apple Watch or, a Fitbit, but the problem is, who wants to wear an extra watch, just as who wanted to carry a pager,
right.
Up to this point. And you're going to have to get measurement in the phones. Everybody carries them. They're with people 24/7. You have to figure out a way that, phones can, and I've seen the technology 5 years ago as a demonstration, There are a lot of problems you have to get out in terms of privacy, because that means your device will now be, to me, it's already monitoring everything we do. It
With
already is.
5G, right? 5G is going to bring a lot of that in.
4G is monitoring everything we do.
Right.
But there's some privacy concerns there.
Right.
Some concerns about being able to monitor a station and not messing up a phone call that you're taking. However, I think that measurement has to change and improve. We have to look at districts based on in New York, our challenge is many of the areas that used to be considered black, where Nielsen went in and really focused measurement and getting minorities, they've changed. Gentrification has altered Brooklyn forever. Gentrification has altered Harlem forever. So what was a black area 10 years ago is not necessarily so today. And so all of that comes into play. KJLH in Los Angeles, Stevie Wonder's own station, they're in Inglewood. Well, guess what? Inglewood is not African-American anymore. They were at the center of South Central. South Central ain't the South Central of mom and daddy anymore. So KJLH has to look, hey, are we able to tabulate ratings in our signal coverage area where the people we originally bought the station to serve have moved elsewhere? And so those are all things that that radio has to look at. Is number one, beyond our control, it's measurement, and it's somewhat our control. We're tied to Nielsen. If we're not doing well, Nielsen's not doing well, because Nielsen counts on us to pay our bills for their data. But Nielsen needs to innovate. Radio at the same time, improve our streaming experience, greatly improve it, and also we need more marketing. When's the last time you saw radio on a billboard? You don't see many anymore. It used to be that every station with a significant morning show or story to tell, we need to be in, we don't do a very good job of talking about all the things that we do. We are constantly working on community initiatives. And not just BLS. I can go down a huge list of stations here in New York and around the country, including competitors that are constantly doing good good by the community. And radio needs to tell that story a lot better, especially if we're going to move into the future and being healthy. We also have to have a different way of selling advertisers. Advertisers want one-stop shopping. They want a digital campaign. They may want some spots, or they may not. They may want product placement from your jocks. So we have to be very forward-thinking and how do we reach and impact tomorrow's advertising meeting. Now there used to be one decision maker at an agency. Now there are 5 that may take kind of a consensus vote before they spend the dollars. Well, we've got to learn how to make an impact when we have 20 minutes with 4 of the 5, or God willing, 5 of the 5.
Right, absolutely. I think this conversation is so necessary, because you would be, I'm sure you know, but I am amazed at how many of us have been in the industry for decades and don't really understand the game. What we get is, opportunities to work. Great when you're able to land a major market like New York.
Sure.
You lose your job and you're just devastated for another decade.
Yeah.
But we don't understand the inner workings of radio, and there's just so much to be told so that we can move forward. I think a lot of us are operating in the old paradigm and a lot of assumptions, because we're not privy to the information of C-suite execs. You guys are in the boardroom. We just get the trickle down. So this conversation is very important, and I really appreciate you taking time to explain it. Tell me about leveling the playing field with Black ownership, though. Where are we with that?
Well, I'm it's one of my side gigs, I guess you can call it, because it's non-paid, but I'm so passionate about it, as I'm a member of the Committee for Diversity and Digital Empowerment that was founded by the FCC several years ago, and I joined last October around this time, and I've been very honored to be able to work just on that point. Ownership is tough, and it's simply it hinges on one thing: access to capital. If I can walk down the street to Bank of America and get the same loan that others with similar experience do not look like me have, then I have a chance to own. But many African Americans who had great ideas and hopes for ownership took substandard loans. They either lost their stations or had to give them up within a 2 to 3 year period. Because at the end of the day, you may say, "Hey, I'm looking good here," until you see what you got to pay the bank for your loan. So you need loans at rates that make sense. You need to be able to have more options for financing and not just going to, like Ms. Hughes did, 21 banks, and the 21st said yes, the other 20 said no. In a better world, 5 of banks would have said yes, and Ms. H could have gotten the best deal. And, thank God it worked out. But in many cases, for the average African American that's looking into business ownership, they get the 21st to say yes, and they're basically no more than a predatory lender. So access to capital is first and foremost. Number 2, we got to train more market managers. We have to train more heads of research and programming, because you're not going to be a great media owner if you don't understand how media works. And that's why a lot of people get into the game. They go, "Oh, let's go buy Ebony Jet. Let's go buy Essence." Well, you got to have a lot of experience to run that. And if you don't, you've got to have enough common sense to go hire people that do and let them do their job.
Yes.
But what you don't want to do is go out and say, "Oh, I can run this now and it's big time, and I can go down to Essence and maybe I'll meet Beyonce this year." No, that's the wrong attitude to take. When you're talking media ownership, you're talking about a very, very, crucial need for information, knowledge, and people that already have those skills to apply what is available through the tools of research, through understanding the needs of the local community. This is not a game for the faint of heart. And so, another mistake many families make or groups make once they get a station is they hire all their friends and family to run it. And, I've worked for a couple of companies, and, literally the whole family was involved. Now, if the whole family knows what they're doing, God bless them, let's go. We're going to win.
Right.
It's not been the case in many of the situations. Probably inner city was closest I've worked at where it was a family-owned operation, and over the years they did learn to have enough people from outside who have experience. I was recruited from Washington, D.C., and I never will be anything but grateful to the Sutton family for bringing me in 2008 when they did. But, many, especially family-owned companies, just didn't work that way. And they, it was too late by the time they figured out that we really need people who know what they're doing. Not cousin Dennis who just graduated from college needs a job.
Absolutely.
So those are the 2 main things, but, access to capital, definitely expertise, and bringing up people that are ready to be the next owners and operators that have the skills and knowledge and understanding. Because it's not buying it. We can find money. There are always people that can loan you and give you money. It's, again, getting the right rates for it. And, then it's being able to operate what you just bought. There's many people, they spend all this money and they realize after 6 months, I just can't do this. I'm not going to be able to make it long term.
It's not just all glamour.
It's never glamour, and there are some fun times. I'm the first to say that there's so many good times and where I go and what I do. But what I tell people is that you really see the culmination of it when you go to a summer jam, or you come to a Circle of Sisters, or you get to take a picture with Brandy when she comes by BLS. But you never have an idea of the work that goes in day in and day out to keep these stations on the air, to keep them, together. It's rough.
Absolutely. And a quick shout out to Inner City for me as well. They hired me from St. Louis to work at their first flagship radio station, The Wiz, in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So long eons ago. My goodness. So how about women? There are a lot of women who feel that they are ready to upgrade, but there's no place to go. There's no place to go. There's no positions opening up, and then when they are open, it feels, may not be true, but it feels as though we're held at a different standard than others. What do you say to that?
There are a few thoughts. This was, and media in general, TV was probably worse than radio, but it was a boys' club. And even when you saw Black men starting to break through, women were left out. If you look today at the number of Black female program directors, I do not know one working outside of the urban format or gospel or Black talk. When you talk about Black female program directors in major markets, I can give you about 5. I think Kashawn Powell, Thea Mitchum, who's in a senior position at iHeart, and 2 to 3 others. Paris Nicole in Philadelphia, but overall it's very minimal. Terry Avery in Atlanta is doing a phenomenal job at ALR down there. But it starts with training. It starts, bringing up that female assistant program director, and the program director teaching her everything that they possibly can. The department, a corporate, making sure that she goes to the meaningful conferences, not parties, but meaningful gatherings, that she is exposed to Nielsen and how their methodology has changed, over the years. And, the scary thing is when people are what I would call grandfathered, in, and, when they go, they just get the next person from Baltimore or Cleveland and keep it moving. But, we definitely need more women to assume positions in programming, content, and especially on the sales side. Black women director of sales, hard to find. Black women market managers, almost impossible to find unless you get one and grow her in the position.
Right.
And very few companies feel they have the time, that they have the money, and they have the passion to do that. Growing somebody means that it's like raising my son who's 11. He makes mistakes every day. That means you're willing to put up with that. Not stupid mistakes, but mistakes. Right. You're willing to put up with that day in and day out for a couple of years. And you find that very seldom today. But it's going to take that if we want to see more women come into the door. We're also going to have to be very cognizant of the fact that, these women may have children, and their commitments are expected to be often more than the man of the house. And you have to also understand that the greatest female manager you have may need Fridays to work from home, and that's something that, again, a great company will say, you know what, that's a commitment that we can make easy, because we know she's always on the clock. But Chesley Maddox Dorsey was a mentor of mine. She's runs Super Radio, Access One, and American Urban Radio Networks. And she, inspires me because she was one that basically, went through the financial troubles in her company, sold assets, kept people working, and now owns her company outright. Bought out the investment firm that, what she knew would have eventually probably sold her company out from under her within a number of years. And now she wholly owns it. But she is, a stickler about budgets and revenue and having people in place. And that's what it takes. It takes a, relentless, it takes a relentless push and commitment by a company, that it just is what it is. And, it's tough, but it's not impossible. And again, the word I have is commitment, but it takes others to say, we're going to, invest in people and make sure that we're not only diverse, but there is inclusion. So they're not just people in mid-level management, but people at the very top when the decisions and where the decisions are really being made.
Well, that's just, it's brilliant information, but and I really feel like you have empathy and understand the plight of women in the industry, and especially Black women, because we are largely not in a position to be groomed for management positions. Some of us are lucky, but many of us are not. And my commitment for Black women in radio is to foster significant relationships so that there's a level of mentorship there, so that there is some avenue that Black women can go to say, you know what, I really want to prep myself for a management position, and there's nothing available. But is there someone in the industry that will speak to me, that will give me the next step? Just what is the next step?
What I did want to, offer is this, and this is something I have been told, constantly in just what you're referring to, and that is finding, mentors in the business, in the industry, just one, and they tell everybody that find a mentor. I have several men and women I connect with and try to have lunch with, maybe that significantly younger than me. Once every several months. Doesn't have to be all the time. And, I try to talk with once or twice a month and, share their challenges, share information I may have got, send articles that, deal with management and changes in our business. And, sometimes that can make the difference. When I wanted to be a program director, I told everybody that I met, my fellow jocks. And I wound up one day going into the office to tell my music director, I said, and I was in New Orleans, I said, I really would like to be a program director one day. And he just laughed, oh, you're not going to do that, da, da, da. And the consultant was just in earshot. And I had no idea. The consultant walked in the studio while I was doing my shift. He said, oh, he's going to be a program director. And I said, yeah, dude. I said, yeah, it's my dream. He said, well, he said, you're a great on-air talent. He said, I think, that's the start. He said, and you'll make it. And he has helped me throughout my career. And helped me get, my first big market PD job. He happened to be a consultant at a station that was interested in me. So you never know. And again, by telling people, even though you were laughed off by some you were telling, you never know who's in earshot. This is, well, your interest is my interest. And I do need people I can move around and bring up and grow. So, find a mentor and tell people what your goals are. Don't hold back, because a lot of people, they'll go in with their boss and, they don't want to give their boss any indication that they want their boss's job. And
in many cases, you better not.
You better not. You can let your boss know, which is a compliment to him or her.
Yes.
You do want to grow, and you do admire how they got to where they are. And, you want to really learn the ropes. And what do I need to do to be better? At what I'm doing and to be ready for the next level. And sometimes, that's how you get people to really warm up to you. It's not, hey, I want your job. It's that I'm really ready. I'm really willing to work. So one day I will have your job because I've earned it,
Yes.
And when people see those that really want to grow, even when they're threatened in a way, they're always interested, good managers are always interested in helping good people to grow and move forward. And I think the best compliment you can have as a manager, I know for me as a program director, is seeing one of my jocks go on to something bigger than what I'm doing, seeing one of my people making more money than I'm making. And I was fortunate, someone who reported to me for many years just got a major job at Amazon. And I was just so happy to see, him in a C-suite situation, literally blowing his salary out the door with one move, things that he a few months ago was thinking could never happen for him. Stroke of a pen. And he was recruited heavily and did not realize that he was just what those people needed. And he had been under their, he had been in New York and doing pretty much the same thing for 30 years and had no idea that in his early 50s, the tech world of all things would come and say, hey, come on, we need what you have. And he's growing by leaps and bounds in just a few months he's been there. So those are the greatest victories I have. And I don't take credit for these things, but I'm glad I was able to be there to motivate, push, share knowledge, and encourage.
That's huge. And once in a while I'll get, an interview guest who says, this is exactly what happened to me. I was able to get a mentor and plopped right into that position. But I can tell you there are tons of us who are like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I know.
And thank goodness podcasting has opened up, because there is more talent than there are positions.
There are, and I think the next great on-air talent are going to come through the podcast realm. This has opened up a way for many great communicators to be discovered, to be found, and just as TikTok has opened up another
Isn't that
path
funny?
for labels to find artists.
Yes.
But that's what technology can do, and when it's used well, it can help with the diversity and inclusion issue. It really can. But
It can.
I think that for you and for anybody that's that listens to this, I would say update your LinkedIn page, post articles, post commentary, anything that you're doing, put pics up there, because I'm surprised at the engagement I've gotten since I put the boards I'm on, since I put some of the things I'm doing on, some of the things I'm passionate about, and you'd be surprised because LinkedIn is really becoming truly, like, if I can't find somebody on IG or
That's
on
true.
Facebook, I haven't seen so and so in a long time. Almost guaranteed, I will track them down on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and everybody's on. So, get your page ready. Corporate people I know, especially those in HR, they have corporate accounts that allow them to narrow down searches, and your name. If your page is done right, you've got enough information and hashtags, your name can pop up in those searches. And they let you know. I mean, my name comes up in searches, and I'm like, this is really amazing. But again, I didn't start seeing that until I populated, and I go and check it a couple times a day and see what's coming in. But it's a powerful tool, and you have to use all of those in order to be seen, and sometimes rise above the crowd. Because again, once you get in front of people, then you have a chance to really show them who you are and what you can do. The key today is just getting in front of people.
Yeah.
It's who you know, and it's what people are able to find that they believe what skill sets you have. People believe that their organizations need.
And as far as recruiters are concerned, what are your thoughts on that?
Recruiters are good, but it's hard to recruit in the media industry because we're so objective, subjective. Yeah, I mean, like if you're looking for an accountant, you find somebody with an accounting degree that has the background of experience that you need. Finding an on-air talent, I'm not going to use a recruiter for that. I know talent all over the place. I just have to find the one that fits into my needs. I have a small bench that I try to develop, that do weekends or fill-ins, and so when I have a talent position open up, I already got a pretty good idea of where I'm going. So for recruiters, they tend to work better for corporate off-air, off-content kind of positions, more for digital directors and that kind of thing, digital strategy, business managers, sometimes sales and general managers, but it's extremely, hard to use them in TV and radio. They just typically, unless it's a non-content position, it's hard to see where that really works.
When you are looking for a talent, what stands out most for you? What captures your attention most?
For me, it is the ability to cut through, being able to get through the clutter, being able to be heard, being able to get their point across, brief and concise, no rambling, no trying to be a DJ is probably the first turn off. I want somebody that is as real and conversational as a good neighbor or a good friend. I want somebody that has an ear to the community, to the street, that knows where they are and who they're serving, that's not trying to bring everybody over to their thought pattern or way of thinking, but that simply, are mirroring what they see day to day. you know, and great storytellers. You got to be, if you can't tell a story, I'm not interested. I love storytellers. And so, you know, somebody that can give me a chuckle or give me, you know, hey, wow, I've never thought about that. You know, that knocks me off in an interview. That knocks me out in an interview, and like, wow, I really, really need to talk more to this person. But you know, there's somebody that just says, "Hey, my weave pretty," or you know, my nails, or you know, or I'm doing this, or look at me, and I just did a photo shoot. No. One
Yeah.
thing you can always find that, you know,
Yeah.
but it's hard to find great storytellers that you know. Again, they have an authority, not a DJ voice, but an
Mhm.
authority in whatever their voice sounds like, that cuts through, that engages people, and can hold people for the few seconds of attention span we have left in humanity.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk to you as we wrap up about the imaging of Black women, specifically in our industry. What are your thoughts?
There's a long way to go. I think a lot of the challenge you have is, um, you know, there's many things positive about a Megan Thee Stallion as they are negative. And the other thing is Black women are often perceived in, you know, the upper echelons of business as angry and militant and you know, as and a lot of that has to do with you know, some of the BS that passes as TV shows these days. You know, some of the,
Yes.
you
Thank you for
know,
saying that.
there are more dating games on these things. You know, you and I are kissing all over each other, and we both married to somebody. There's a lot of stuff that I sit there like, this is crazy, and it really leaves Black women looking like they're finicky, they're fickle, and they're emotional about everything, and they're unfulfilled, and they can't find a man, and the man they find, they're overdue trying to keep him, and then they you know, want to beat the hell out of him once he shows who they knew he was. It's tiring.
It
And I
is.
think that until you see more inclusion, especially in media, and more shows that engage. I mean, right now, I'm not a TV watcher per se, but I am hooked on HBO's Lovecraft Country. I think probably the diverse ways that Black women are portrayed. I mean, it is very fascinating, and they
Oh,
deal with a lot of things from Black sexuality to Black exploitation, and it's fascinating given that it's a bit horror, it's a bit science fiction, it's a bit everything. But you need more creativity. I think you know, Insecure is Array, it's brilliant. You know, you see a Black woman that is you know, always at that level of just getting ready to blow up, and all the pitfalls that she runs into, from fake friends to crazy relationships, and those are stories that need to be told more often. Was it I May Destroy You, the African Sister? I think that addresses you know, rape and domestic violence against women uh, brilliantly. You know, and you know, so you are seeing some beacons of light, but we need much more. And I think that you know, Black men also have to stand up and say, hey, we have to look at how our women are portrayed. And you know, the beautiful thing, if there is any good takeaway from what how we've had to change with COVID, is that, you know, a lot of myths and the craziness of being exploded. You're seeing women say, "Hey, you know, this guy's been out of my life due to COVID, and I feel a lot better about me." You know, you're seeing guys that, you know, they really can't go and juggle all these women because they're afraid of COVID. The women ain't going to have them around anyway.
right.
Nothing to do, you know. I mean, so you know, that it is forcing people to do a reset and look at a little bit of self-care and say, you know what, I need to learn a new language, or you know, I've been trying to take off these extra pounds. You know, now they talk about everybody gaining weight during COVID, but thank God I've, you know, been working out more and more because I'm at home working,
Yeah.
and you know, can't get on your treadmill and talk while you're on a 2-hour conference call. You sure can when you're at home and got things
Right.
listening. You know, so
exactly.
you know, this is a great time for us to reset. look at ourselves, look at what we're lacking. Take a couple of online tutorials. I've got my podcasting set up and getting ready to take my plunge into some podcasting. So
I love it.
how that goes. But, these are all things that we're finding, this is a good time to rebrand you and figure out where you go. And when to finally answer your question, talking about changing the stereotypes of women, this is, again, a great time to do it. But everybody's asking in this age of diversity and inclusion and the rhetoric we've seen in Washington over the past 4 years, what can we do? And women have to be very like the ones that did the Show Must Pause, that was dealing with the lack of diversity and inclusion in the record industry. We've got to be loud. We've got to make our voices loud and say, hey, it's time to end assumptions, time to end stereotypes, and start to tell our story and tell it in a new way with a new narrative. And, as we work collectively together and get on more Zooms and town halls and social, seeing Patty and Gladys on Versus,
That was cool.
A totally new message to larger audiences than us, that we are, everything that we dreamed we could be and more.
I'm so glad to have someone like you who not only has the knowledge and history behind him, but also is very empathetic about the plight of the Black woman, because it's a different story, and it's been told so much as though we're the victim, when we're not that at all. We're just underestimated.
Of course, absolutely, totally, 100% agree.
Yeah. Well, I am so thrilled. I cannot wait to see what you are going to be up to with the National Black Radio Hall of Fame. I want to send kudos to Bernie Hayes, the founder, of course, of the National Black Radio Hall of Fame, and his insight to recognize that if he did not form a platform, many people, even like you, would never be recognized for all of the contributions and accomplishments that you've had in the industry. And there have been many. And not to say that you've not been awarded. I've seen that you have been recognized, but to the height of a Hall of Fame is a pretty big deal. And I'm so glad that Bernie, put us all together.
Me too. I really, really am. And thank you, Felicia. Look forward to, to keeping in touch and really working on some great things with this Hall of Fame. And, this was really fun.
I so appreciate it. And I'm so thrilled to have an opportunity to get to know Skip Dillard. Well, you know what? I am going to wrap it up. It's been an hour. I want to be cognizant of your time. Thanks so much. And I am going to call on you again.
You got it. Thank you, Felicia, and have a great day.
You too.